I'm Julie Coleman with Coldwell Banker Tomlinson. I am here with Tim Windhorse with Heritage Home Loans, and together we feel that real estate can be about way more than just transactions.
Yes, indeed. Everybody has either heard of somebody or personally dealt with the tragedy of suicide in either their lives or their friends' lives. And this year, Julie and I are teaming up to give a portion of our income from sales to help spread suicide awareness, education, and for those who may have had to go through that unfortunate event of suicide, some recovery steps afterwards.
So today you're going to hear from a woman whose husband died by suicide, and also hear from an amazing nonprofit organization in our area that helps people with healing and hope through supporting suicide prevention.
To introduce Jacki Massey. Jacki has been a longtime friend of mine and unfortunately lost her husband in July of 2019. She's been very gracious to share her story with us and give us all hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
My name is Jacki Massey, and I'm here today to talk about my husband Terrence, who I lost to suicide back in 2019. Terrence and I were married for 15 years. We met in high school. We met in middle school, and we dated for about 4 years before we got married. We have 5 kids. Our oldest, now he's 18. When Terrence passed away, he was 13. But all the way down to our youngest now, she's 9. She was 4 at the time that he passed away. So Terrence struggled with a mental health condition. He had bipolar disorder, bipolar type 2, which is a little bit different from the traditional bipolar disorder in the sense that your mania is different. And so whereas with bipolar type 1, your mania is kind of that impulsive, like I'm gonna go and buy a car, or I'm gonna go to Vegas, or I'm gonna, things like that. His mania was a lot more agitation. It was a lot of insomnia. And so he could have weeks at a time where he was awake and just could not turn his brain off. And then he would come out of his mania and go down into a depressive state, and he could be like that for weeks at a time to where he barely functioned and couldn't get out of bed. And so the struggle in that was that it's really hard to get bipolar like that diagnosed. And for a long time, he kept being diagnosed as depression, depression and anxiety. But the problem with that is that there's some medications that they prescribe for those different illnesses that can actually make bipolar worse. And so we spent a good probably 10 years just trying to get him the appropriate diagnosis. And basically that entire time he was suicidal in some sense or another, whether it was like an active, like I would have to called an ambulance and have him taken to the hospital, suicidal, or it was just an everyday thing where he would say, I don't know how I'm gonna live the rest of my life feeling this way, feeling hopeless. It was really, I cannot advocate enough for mental health counseling and things like that, because I got them all into that immediately after he passed away. We did family, they call it triage counseling, basically, immediately afterwards. And all of us were in that. And then individually, every single one of my kids has done counseling and their own kind of therapy work with it. And they can understand and kind of separate the mental illness portion of their dad and what he struggled with and who he was as a person. And I don't think they'll fully ever understand. I don't think I'll ever fully understand all of it, but they're doing really good. They're doing really good. I think the biggest thing is just to be willing to ask the questions. I think sometimes it's really scary to say those words out loud and to be like, Are you safe? I'm worried about you. Do you have a plan? I think that's, Terrence had plans, multiple, at different points, and different plans at different points, and asking, you know, what those are, making sure that they don't have access to things like weapons. I know that feels very morbid, but it's critical. My husband killed himself with a weapon, and I think just asking those questions and looking for changes in behavior leading up to the event. In my case, Terrence talked a lot about suicide. He was seeking counseling and things like that for it. And then about 3 months prior to his death, his behavior changed, his mood changed. He was all of a sudden very engaged with our kids. He was very happy. He was doing a lot of things. And in my head, I was like, we've turned a corner. This is fantastic. But really, sometimes when people have made up their mind that they're going to complete suicide, there's a sense of relief or a sense of peace that they get from that. And so they do tend to have that kind of change in behavior of actually seeming like they're getting better. So I'm not saying that that's the case in every situation, but I know for me that was a huge red flag that I didn't know was a red flag at the time. And it's actually a piece of advice that I give to people now, this seems weird, but people now who experience loss, especially this kind of loss, they'll come to me and say, this happened, or I have a friend who this happened to, or I don't know what to do. And the one thing that I give them for advice is to write down all the gestures of kindness that you experience over that period of time, because it can feel really, really dark, and it feels really heavy. And it's really phenomenal when you take a step back and focus on the positive, because it can change your perspective. And so that's, he loved sports, absolutely loved sports. Any competition that he could get himself into, he loved. Everything became a competition, and he was funny. He was so funny. He could make me laugh like nobody else could, and he would catch me off guard, and he used to it was almost like a game with him, where he would say a joke or he would do something, and I would throw my head back laughing to the point where I looked ridiculous and no sound was coming out. And it was just, he was really, I don't mean this to sound crass, but I call it his farewell tour, because I think he knew, and I think he was just kind of taking that opportunity to get his last, whatever he wanted to get in. And that's something that's really hard. It's something that my kids have really struggled with, because again, his bipolar made him somewhat disengaged from our family. It was very hard to raise kids and have mental illness. And especially my second son, the two of them got really close during that time. And that's something that he really struggles with. I'm sorry. That's something that he really struggles with now, is that I don't understand why Dad seemed really good and then he died. And it was about 3 years of kind of some ups and downs and some bad decisions, and kind of coming out of all of this fog of life, before I finally decided that maybe I was ready to put myself out there and date again. And I went on dating apps, which is the worst. And by only the grace of God, truly only the grace of God, I met my now husband, and he is the most phenomenal man. He is wonderful and kind, and just everything that I could have ever hoped for. And he's adopted all 5 of my kids, so they are now legally his. They have his name, And just that, you know, even in like the darkest, deepest depths of like going through all of this, I couldn't have imagined coming out of it on the other side and realizing that like there's so much hope and there's so many wonderful things that I had to look forward to that I didn't know at the time. But I'm so grateful that I am where I am now, and the lessons I learned from everything that I went through.
Thank you, Jacki, for having the courage to share your story with us. What happened with Jacki is heartbreaking, and unfortunately, it is not uncommon. That's why we have Fail Safe for Life with us today to talk about what can be done for suicide prevention and resources that they have to help others that are in need.
I'm Lenny Rasmussen, and I am the president for Fail Safe for Life, a nonprofit organization focused on suicide prevention in the local Spokane community area.
Yeah, and I'm Anna Bowers. I'm the current vice president of Fail Safe for Life, and our mission is to end suicide in our communities, and we hope to do that through connection, education, and hope.
Our very dear friend Sabrina Votava, who is the executive director of our organization, she lost both of her brothers to suicide about 6 months apart when we were sophomores in college. We've known Sabrina since we were in second grade together, and that had a very big impact on our lives as we also knew her brothers very dearly as well. So Fail Safe is a mechanism in a machinery, so if something goes wrong, it kicks in so the whole machine isn't destroyed. That's how we got our name, Fail Safe for Life. We are that mechanism that kicks in when something goes wrong in somebody's life or in the community's life. That's what we see. We provide that education, we provide that connection, we provide that hope. We're that fail safe so the whole machine does not break down.
Well, and I think it's true that most of us in this room or in our community have been impacted in some way, and for the longest time, there's been a lot of stigma around suicide, and so we hope to change that and really create a safe environment that's inclusive and connects folks with the resources that they need when they're in a crisis situation or if they know somebody who is in a crisis situation.
So we have various amounts of trainings. We offer 2 evidence-based training programs that are very impactful in our community. One of those is QPR training, which is question, persuade, refer. That is our basic level training that we think everybody in our community should have. It equips you with the basic skills on how to ask somebody if they are facing suicide ideations, and then persuade them in that moment on how to get help, and then refer them to the right resources. We also offer free training to the community through grant sponsors, like Providence is a huge grant sponsorship of us that allows us to put on trainings free to the community. And so we have several of those throughout the year, and those are offered, and they're all on our website. So you can go to our www.failsafeforlife.org and easily find access to all those upcoming trainings along with all of our resources. So if you're struggling, or if you know somebody who's struggling, those resources are easily accessible on our website, and you can help point someone in that right direction.
We partner a lot with other nonprofits who specialize in post-event care, kind of like, you know, a lost survivor would be going through. But again, a lot of those resources are available on our website. We like to connect people with as many other organizations that do this great work as we can. And so that's probably the best place to start. There's also the 988 hotline. That's the 24/7 crisis hotline. So you can call or text into that at any time. So yeah, there's a lot of resources out there available, and clearly getting people the help that they need. Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest challenges in combating suicide today, I think, is still the stigma around it and the connection with mental health issues. Studies have shown that over half the folks that end up taking their own lives have some sort of related mental health issue. And so one of the biggest things that we try and focus on is really opening that conversation up. And again, with the QPR training, question, persuade, refer. It's not always easy to ask somebody, are you thinking of ending your life, or do you feel safe? And so just having those simple connections with folks, whether it's a stranger on the street, whether you've known them years or just a few months, you just never know what somebody's going through. And so I think the other challenge that we face is trying to reach all of the demographics that we're trying to support. Men in particular have been a challenge for us, and trying to make it a conversation that's easier for men to have and not feel like there's so much stigma around it, or something that they should be ashamed of. So the community can get involved in a lot of different ways. Our website is a great resource for all of the events we have coming up. I think Lenny mentioned we have mailers for mental health. We've got our Grit Big auction and our gala coming up in April, which we can put the date for in the link below. No, just kidding. But we've got our auction coming up. That's a big way for folks that are not familiar with the organization to come in and hear some stories of loss survivors and just really see what impact we're making in the community, because it's really hard to quantify how many lives that we've saved. But we try and do that through our impact numbers. How many trainings are we able to complete in our communities? How many other folks have we been able to touch through those resources? In addition to that, we've got a lot of volunteer opportunities where we partner with other organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And so the Out of the Darkness Walk is a big one that we kind of started with back in Seattle. And then the other ones that we mentioned mailers.
Yep, and then we have those baskets of kindness, so the community can send in different things for that. We do like flameless candles, socks, and so there's all different things, and we will put out needs for the community. You can follow us too on our Facebook page and on our Instagram page, so those things we will also provide, so you have ways to reach out to us and contact us. But those needs, and then we also can have people just, support just talking and asking questions and being kind. That's one way that you can support us every single day, is being kind to your fellow humans. You can find us on our website, which has all the resources at www.failsafeforlife.org. You can also follow us on Instagram at failsafeforlife, and then also at Facebook at Fail Safe for Life. So it's really easy to find us, Fail Safe for Life.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Our hope is that we are providing enough education and allowing our audience to be able to pick up on the warning signs of suicide. If you see somebody that's struggling or think somebody might be struggling, the National Suicide Hotline is 988. The ladies that we interviewed here locally in Spokane can be reached at www.failsafeforlife.org. They can also be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Failsafe for Life.
Thank you.